So on the other side of this vacant lot, there is an electrical transformer, and it's had graffiti on it for a long time. And I finally got around to painting it, so it looks all nice. And of course, like the next night, fresh graffiti everywhere, you know? So I'm like, okay, I can play this game. And so I painted over it again, and there's graffiti again. And then I was kind of like, oh, this is starting to get boring now. I'm not sure I want to keep doing this. So I would stop for a while. But then it was a couple days before Christmas. I'm like, you got to make everything look nice for Christmas. And so I painted it back over, and I had a couple gold Sharpies. I was thinking, I want to write a message to these folks. And I knew their names now, at least their graffiti names, because they like wrote them on there. And at first I was thinking, what should I write? Like something like, this is my turf now, sign God or something. But I don't know, you don't want to burn the church down right before Christmas. So I ended up writing Merry Christmas, Leno and Satu, those are their names, every blessing to you. And I was curious what would happen. And so we were gone for Christmas and came back. And you can see it here. Actually, I should check. Maybe there's something new. But the graffiti wrote, thanks. Isn't that cool? So I kind of feel like I have this connection now. I like want to like paint it over and ask if they like have prayer requests or something, you know? Graffiti ministry. It's interesting though, I think it was something about calling them out by name, saying I see you, which I think is part of what graffiti is anyway, but to say like I see you, I think changed their response, you know? Because it is sort of passive aggressive to paint over someone's artwork, right? But it reminds me today of what Jesus must have done when he was talking to Nathanael. Something about how he said, here is an Israelite in whom there is no deceit. Something about how he said that somehow communicated to Nathanael, I know you, I see you, perhaps even better than you know yourself. Because, you know, Nathanael's question, appropriately, how do you even know me? Was met by, I think, just sort of a coy response by Jesus. You know, I saw you under a fig tree. He doesn't really answer the question. I think it was something about that original statement. I know who you are. But Nathanael then says, you're the Son of God. How did Jesus know that man so fully to be able to communicate that? In fact, how does God, the creator of the universe and the planets and the stars, and the mountains and the lakes and atoms in each one of us, care enough to pay attention to each one of us enough to know each of us so fully that for at least 2,500 years humans had treasured the precious wisdom in Psalm 139. That from my mother's womb you have known me, you have knit me together. You know when I go out, you know when I come in, you know my thoughts before I think them, my words before I say them. It's comforting. I sort of think it's kind of terrifying too. I spent some time in El Salvador in 2003. It was right after I graduated. I thought I was going to go into politics, and so I spent some time as a campaign manager for some candidates for a high school district board out in East County. When they got our clocks clean, it was really disillusioning because I really thought we had the truth on our side, but it didn't matter. You know, it was really instead like how you communicate that to the press, and we got beat up. You know, people believed what they wanted to believe. And then a celebrity got elected to state office, Schwarzenegger, and I was just tired of the whole thing, you know, and wanted to leave the country for a while. I needed to find a new career. And I ended up in this rural place in El Salvador where the Jesuit scholars who were practicing, you know, doing their internship to become Jesuit priests came out on the weekends. And I got to participate in the Ignatian spiritual exercises. I don't know if you all have heard of that before. So St. Ignatius of Loyola is the founder of the Jesuits, and perhaps his greatest contribution to spirituality was these spiritual exercises that are 30 days long and start with the question of sort of who am I, and then who is Jesus, and what does it mean to be a Christian? And it's something that folks do when they're really trying to discern a big decision in their life. And the way the whole thing starts. So Psalm 139. Who are we and whose are we? To be fully known. Mother Laurel has a similar story. During a retreat several years ago in Ocean Beach, a nun asked her to read 139, and she had a pretty powerful mystical experience of experiencing God not as far off, but as near, as intimate. If we are willing to trust that our relationship with God is dependable enough and that God knows us so fully, do we let God in all the way? Or are there parts of our lives that we still keep sectioned off behind a closed door? What do we hold back from God? And why? It doesn't really make any sense if you think about it, if we really think that God knows us better than we know ourselves, because God already knows what's behind those doors. Why? Why do we hold back? I think one answer is, it's because we know when you really sort of open up, when we let God in, we start to trust in the dependability of this relationship, that it's going to change us. As any intimate relationship will change us. Who wants that? Imagine the glorious adventures that Nathanael embarked upon after that statement, "You're the Son of Man." But also his fate. Also known as Bartholomew. He's the disciple that has the knife there by the book, because he was skinned alive. Fortunately, that doesn't happen to all of us. But life does change when we start that walk. You're not bringing me to the priesthood, and God's still working on me in ways that, again, I probably wouldn't ask for. I think I'm mostly got it under control right now. I think, God, you just kind of stay in the passenger seat. I think I kind of got this now. But no, it's that relationship keeps calling us to something new. For me, it's calling forth a greater generosity of my time and my money. And there's even actually part of that is St. Luke's. We've really been blessed with an abundance of resources right now. And my first reaction is to want to hold on to it for that comfort and security, And God is really helping to show me these are free gifts. They have to be given again. Receive, give, receive, give. Cycle, it's scary though. That's something that intimate relationship with God is doing to me right now. But it's interesting though. Think about just those names on those boxes and what just that little glimpse of intimacy did. Changes things. So are we willing to trust? Are we willing to allow God to know us fully? Can we imagine that God knows what's already behind those doors? Are we willing to open up more fully to God? Can we rely on the dependability of our relationship with God? And if so, how does that start to change our relationships with others, especially our relationships across lines of privilege and prejudice, our relationships with the marginalized and the forgotten, the homeless? If anything changes this world, it's the relationships across those lines. Dependable relationships across those lines of privilege and prejudice that change the world. And I think we're starting to show that at St. Luke's. We're going to keep trying to do that in the time ahead. But we need to rely on each other. And that reliance first comes from God. So in this time of Epiphany, when it's about sharing that knowledge of who God is with the world, and we're the chief ambassadors, terrifying or not, let's start with ourselves. Can we trust that good news, that God knows us fully? Are we willing to ride that wild ride as we open up more fully to God?